Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast. I'm here with my man, Steve Hall. Steve, for those that might not know who you are, which probably isn't very many, introduce yourself to the people and tell them what you're all about.
Cool. So, yeah, I'm from Revive Stronger. Maybe that's where people might have heard of me. And I guess we are a content production company as well as online coaching, focusing on like physique competitors and people just who are super interested in taking things to the next level. A lot of the people we coach are personal trainers or coaches themselves, or competitors, or like wannabe competitors in future. So that's really cool. And then most of our content production comes through podcast, revivestronger.com, where I'm blessed to be interviewing kind of some of the industry's smartest people, which is really cool. I'm myself a bodybuilder. I've competed in 2 seasons. Last competed in 2017 over in the UK. Did better than I thought I might, and I was really happy about that. And just continually kind of trying to build and be my best self. And that's why I kind of try and encourage for everyone else. Revive Stronger all came from, and I won't go into too much detail, it all came from me basically having a pretty bad accident and building myself up to be better than I've ever been.
Wow.
And that's really kind of why I was like, I was fascinated by the human body, the fact I could go from like ground zero to competing on a bodybuilding stage within a few years. So I was like, well, if I can do this, like, why, there's nothing holding other people back. Let's go and tell everyone else how they can do this.
Yeah, totally. Quickly before we get into all the questions and stuff, what kind of got you into bodybuilding? Like, were you, very young and was, subject to that early, or what kind of drove you to bodybuilding in general?
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, I first got into the gym at like 16 years old. Just some of my friends were there and training. But from 16 to probably 20, I didn't really see anything like impressive. I just kind of was lifting. I saw some newbie gains, but nothing much. Like I wouldn't say I'm a genetic freak by any means.
Totally.
What truly got me into bodybuilding was the accident. So I was into like loads of different sports, and I was on a long distance run. I was like did this 10-kilometer run all the time. And unfortunately, I got hit by a van on one of my runs. So
my God.
I suffered a pretty horrific head injury, which laid me in hospital for almost a month. I lost any of the small amount of gains I've made. I was like skinny as a rake. Exactly, as skinny as a rake as I came out. And I suffered there was quite a few long-term head injuries and things. But long story short, it left me in a position where I had very little confidence. I didn't want to go back to kind of the sports. I didn't want to go back to running. And so I found bodybuilding as a way to build myself up and build my body up and build the confidence there. So that's really where everything turned into an obsession. And I did everything wrong at the start, and it all improved as I found some knowledgeable people. So
that's amazing,
that's where it came from.
That's quite the story to go to being hit by a van to the bodybuilding stage. That's cool.
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but I don't regret it in a weird way. The life lessons and stuff you've probably learned through that experience, right? That'll carry with you forever. Yeah, I always say the experience like you are now, very close to stage, that's kind of how you feel when I was in hospital with the head injury, just like lifeless, brain fog. Like when I went through my first contest prep, I was like, shit, why have I done this to myself? This was like what I just recovered from. Yeah, legit. But you have to be a bit crazy to do bodybuilding. So yeah, totally. All right, dude. So what we did for this podcast, for those listening and watching, did the old ask me a question on Instagram. I got flooded with stuff. I don't know if you got any. I got probably enough for this podcast and more for the next one. So let's just dive right into it, man. So the first one I got was a question regarding powerlifting for a bodybuilder. I think let's talk about off-season versus prep maybe, because I think, if it does have a place, it's probably different during both seasons. So start with maybe powerlifting for a bodybuilder in the off-season looking to make some gains. Cool. So, yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think there's a lot to be said for it, because I think people assume powerlifting as if they have no hypertrophy phase or higher general work capacity phase, which they absolutely do, which is very similar to like a bodybuilding hypertrophy phase, yet it's just under the realm of specificity. So I don't know, I guess I can attack the movements first of all, like squat, bench, deadlift. Like imperative for a powerlifter. Sorry, you can't be doing powerlifting without them unless you're doing just like a bench press competition or something. So for bodybuilding, these can be great movements. They can also be crap movements. It kind of depends on the bodybuilder. I think a lot of people can do well with them, but there are people that just find that the movements don't sit with them well, or they cannot get the volume that they need for that hypertrophy work. So then there becomes a bit of a problem. So that is something that needs to be highlighted and needs to be like, if you find those movements, I don't know, your mechanics just don't suit them, you can't produce good quality volume, they beat you up, these sort of things, you really have to be kind of thinking through, should I be doing powerlifting or is it going to really scupper my progress for bodybuilding?
Yeah, very, very person specific.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas for some people, they do incredibly well off these movements. I know, like, there's loads of fantastic bodybuilders, like Brett Freeman, who has come on my podcast. He's a lightweight WNBF pro, and he is made for powerlifting and bodybuilding in many ways. Yeah, he's awesome. But there's other people that just absolutely aren't, and they would be holding themselves back by using those lifts. And that's just the lifts. When we're thinking about then specificity of powerlifting, oftentimes means potentially peaking for powerlifting meets, going through strength phases where you're very low volume. Kind of the goal of strength, the goal of hypertrophy, they somewhat are similar, but also combat one another. For strength training, to get as strong as possible, you want to focus on intensity. That's kind of the king for that goal of strength. Whereas for hypertrophy, it's oftentimes, and especially in the short term, volume. You need to be focused on making sure you're doing sufficient work in the gym. Otherwise, you're not going to be getting as much muscle as you can. Over the long term, you want to be getting stronger. But when you're specifically trying to kind of go through a strength phase and then peaking for a powerlifting meet, you're unlikely to be growing much muscle during that time. And so unless it's kind of a long, drawn-out off-season and you want to go through a long, low-volume phase, it might not be the right tool for you. And like you said, like for contest prep, that absolutely doesn't have a place. You're going to be kind of beating yourself up with these high intensities, with these like triples and singles, and that's not going to be sustaining muscle tissue, and it's going to be beating the crap out of you. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that. I found even, you know, in these latter even 6 to 8 weeks of prep, squatting and deadlifting, not even necessarily like relatively heavy, but just like my knees are like, hey man, slow down a little bit, or my lower back's like, all right, dude, like, you know, maybe hang out on the leg extension for a couple more sets versus squatting, because you're right, it's, you know, there's a time and place, and especially at the end of a prep, it might not be the right time or place. They just start beating you up. Like if we think of it, I always like thinking about it like stimulus to fatigue ratio. The amount of fatigue and the amount they beat you up is so high, whereas you might not be getting the amount of stimulus you want from it. Whereas you can do some great work just sitting yourself in a leg press and getting like your quads demolished on there, rather than trying to go through a squat where maybe the bar's starting to be a pain on your back, your hips aren't feeling great. So I can respect that. In the final like few weeks, I don't think throughout the whole prep, maybe remove it if it's a good movement for you, but I can see why you're now like, damn, this is really beating me up.
So just in general then, do you think in an off season maybe there could be a spot for like, you know, the odd 5x5 or, you know, couple sets of 3 on a big movement, and then, you know, supplementing with more accessory work? Do you think there's potential for that to be beneficial for people?
I definitely think it can work. I am skeptical to think whether it's the best approach, especially for someone more advanced. I think some genetic freaks can absolutely get away with it. They can get away with almost anything. But I know for myself, talk about myself personally, if I try and do that, kind of a little bit of like daily undulating periodization of strength days, hypertrophy days, I end up finding my hypertrophy days wear me out for my strength days, my strength days wear me out for my hypertrophy days, and I just go nowhere. So I have to get quite specific with what I'm doing. You're
kind of battling each other, right? Like you said, like say you do a good leg hypertrophy day, lots of volume, you know, lots of intensity techniques, drop sets, supersets, and then when you go to do your strength day, you're like, man, there's no way I'm squatting today, and my legs are screwed.
Totally.
Fair enough. All right, man. Question answered. Cool. Okay, next one, it's all. I think this is always going to be a hot topic between people because there's that old school mentality versus new school. Your thoughts on clean eating, bro diet versus if it fits your macros?
Cool. So I really don't have a black and white opinion on this at all. I don't think you should. I think the original conception of if it fits your macros got kind of misunderstood.
Yeah.
In that people are like, I think it came about from like Alan Aragon on bodybuilding.com, and he just got frustrated with people asking if they could have beef or chicken, and he was just like, flipping it, like it's not going to make that much difference, like beef or chicken, if it fits your macros.
Yeah.
And this is somewhere where it developed. People have then like completely demolished this and taken it to an extreme where they're saying I'm going to have whey protein and Pop-Tarts. Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
And this then has taken it away from, and we know kind of the important micronutrition, food choices in that sense is maybe not a massive role in body composition, but it plays a massive role in our actual health.
Yep.
And health is very much tied to body composition eventually.
Yep.
So I think there's a fine line, like pure clean eating is not something necessary. It's not the way you have to go. If that's your preference, that's what you want to do, and you're truly not just strictly orthorexic, then fine. I've been there, I've been orthorexic, I've been in a bad place with it and not having an understanding of macros. Mm-hmm. I then understood if it fits your macros and slowly transitioned to just varying things. It's just a case of, and I prefer the idea of flexible dieting where you can just like, okay, I don't want to have chicken, I want to have lean beef.
Yeah.
Or if I don't want to have, I don't know, a banana, I want to have an apple. It's like people are open to then just more choices. And I think the awareness of, yes, you can also eat some discretionary crap if you want to, and I don't even like necessarily saying crap, it's just like, or clean foods even, because it depends on the entire diet, but I'm very much middle ground. In prep, I virtually get rid of any kind of those foods that you would consider unclean, because I'm just in a case of, I need to focus on filling myself up and making sure I'm satiated, especially towards the end when I really I'm struggling with cravings and things. And there is case of, I don't know if you've heard of it or if people have heard it, but the food palatability reward hypothesis, which is basically like you eat tasty foods, you'll crave more tasty foods. If you remove them, then eventually you get over it. Yeah. And some people do very well with like the blinkers on, don't have any of these things that tempt you. And other people do well with just including a little bit of what they fancy at like the end of the day, like a bowl of ice cream or something. Yep. Maybe it's only 100, 200 calories and that ticks them over. So yeah, I'm very much like, depends on the person, depends on the situation. For me, most of the time, I'm pretty flexible with things, having a background and a foundation of kind of the clean ideology. And then when I get deep into prep, it's kind of like, it's just easier not to even think about these other things.
Yeah, and I find, for myself on prep, I find just the consistency of it just gives me that little peace of mind, knowing exactly what's going in my body, how much of it, there's no, ifs, ands, or buts about it, and it just makes it that much simpler for me anyways, because I think if I tried to spend time figuring out what could fit, or like, okay, if I want this, how much of it, I think it would stress me out more than prep stresses me out in general.
It's a massive point. Food Tetris is not a fun game in prep. Like, you can spend far too much time obsessing, like, oh, if I manipulate this, like, down 100 grams, I can, like, put this up. It's like, oh, geez, don't do it to yourself. It's awful.
So when you talk about a prep for somebody, do you say, okay, like, here's meals 1 to 6, maybe these foods can be manipulated for the first, 8 to 10 weeks of prep, then maybe we'll tighten it a little bit, then a little bit more as we go? Is that something you'd say? So, like, okay, this meal, for example, is 5 ounces of chicken, 200 grams of rice, and a vegetable of choice. But you could also have 5 ounces of fish. You could also have 5 ounces of turkey. You could also have 200 grams of rice, 200 grams of potato. Like, macro-wise, they'd be similar. Is that an approach you might take with somebody?
So for me and the way we coach at Revive Stronger, we're very, I don't know how to say it, like the way we coach is we have a lot of like discussion with our clients. Yeah. So we have a very good understanding. If I was maybe just doing email updates, it might be necessary to have like some sort of structure of a meal plan or something like that. Sure. But because we have video check-ins and we have consultations and things, we have a great understanding that I don't even need to go down to the point of potentially suggesting a type of meal plan. Right. And I'd never want to do that anyway, because in the UK at least, we're not legally allowed to like give meal plans. We can
Sure.
as not a registered dietitian or anything like that.
Yep.
So I do just provide macros with an understanding of this is what we want it to look like. And if you want to give me an idea of kind of a day,
A typical day.
you make your own meal plan, and then I'll be like thumbs up, or I'll be like, just make this slight modification. It'll be a little bit better, I suggest.
Yeah.
And then with the idea of, I normally do it from about 4 weeks out, where I'm like, I want you on like a strict meal plan. You create it, I'll okay it,
Yeah.
and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, because you like you said before, the whole like micros and stuff. Like if someone gives you their sheet back and you say you've got 300 grams of carbs to play with, and it's Fruit Loops, it's Halo Top ice cream, it's a couple Oreos and stuff like that, would you maybe give them feedback and say like, okay, you're hitting your carbs, yes, but let's talk about maybe the micros of it and the vitamins and minerals you might be lacking? Is that a conversation you'd have?
Absolutely. That would be like, as soon as I don't see, things like that. We have guidelines of like, spread your protein between 3 to 6 servings through the day fairly evenly.
Yep.
Prioritize carbohydrates, getting like 50% of your carbs around workouts.
Yep.
And then having 2 to 3 fruits and veggies for
Okay.
every 1,000 calories.
Okay.
These are like guidelines.
Yeah, very basic.
And I'm hoping they're following it. But sometimes you have to be like, show me your MyFitnessPal, because I don't believe you if their 5 is like 10 grams.
Yeah, little things like that. And I think the whole micros conversation, everybody gets too hooked on the protein, carbs, and fats without paying more attention to those things, right? Because like you said, there's got to be some kind of correlation with how much you're tracking for health, as well as that has an influence in body composition, right? Like I know for me, like as much as prep sucks at the end, the first part of it, when I'm really focusing on like good lean meats and good carbohydrate sources and vegetables and stuff, like I feel really good. Like I feel better on prep for the first like 12 to 16 weeks than I do in the off season, because in the off season I am more flexible. And as nice as that is, I also do notice that I do slack on the fruits and veggies a little bit, because I can fit in more food, and I don't need to feel full from consuming. Like I just ate before we come on here, and it was beef and broccoli and spinach and mushrooms and stuff, because I needed that volume to fill me, and it was a big old bowl of health, right? And in the off season I wouldn't have that, because I wouldn't need to be full.
And it's crazy, even when you're talking about Fruit Loops or something. If you eat enough of those, you get quite a lot, because they're obviously what's it called? They put in like vitamins and minerals. They fortify them.
Yeah.
So you get if you're eating enough of them and you're on enough carbs, you end up getting quite a lot. So you can end up, because you're just eating so much in off season, you can get away with not
kind of
having
ticks
to
itself
utilize
off.
as many. I'm not saying for people now to just go and eat Fruit Loops, but
that's not what we're saying.
It does have
All right, cool. That was awesome. All right, dude. Next one, another interesting one that is often brought up is the whole bro split. Sorry. So kind of one body part per day, which in speaking with a lot of people on this podcast, including myself, we all started that way. It was always chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, blah blah. But now there's kind of this insurgence of the whole push-pull legs or upper-lower split. Talk to me about your opinion on one versus the other. Is there a place for both at a certain timing or anything like that?
Cool. Yeah, I think I don't know many people who haven't come from the background of like having the bro split, as it were, where you're training things in your head. You're training them 1 time a week, but even when you map it out, something like your shoulders, if you're doing like a chest day, a shoulder day, and like you're already hitting your shoulders, you're hitting the anterior delts and pressing movement. So it all gets a bit confused anyway. Yeah. But when we're looking at kind of Brad Schoenfeld's been doing a lot of work, James Krieger, a lot of work on this, and it's becoming more and more clear, especially on training frequency, that 2 times per week for sure seems superior, and potentially even now evidence has shown that 3 might even be the way to go for some muscle groups. Oh wow! I think 2 is probably a good like lower end. Right. Up to like for some of the smaller muscle groups, I think they can go higher. I think they can benefit from higher. When we're looking at, for me, frequency is a way to divvy up your volume. So if a muscle group that you have can take a lot of volume within the week, why not spread it out more and get higher quality volume than trying to do like, if you can do 15 sets for a muscle group, maybe 5, 5, 5 rather than doing 15 in one muscle in one workout, or maybe do 8 and 6,
Yeah,
if that's right, 8 and 7.
Yeah.
So like splitting it up just allows you to get higher quality volume for me. So Brad Schoenfeld did a great research review on this, and he kind of looked at people and just saw how like basically people doing it all in one session were just getting blasted, whereas other people were able to recover and accumulate more volume.
Yep.
So frequency for me, I really like Mike Israel's concept, which was SRA curve. So this is stress response adaptation.
Okay.
So kind of like you train a muscle group, you cause an overload, you stress it, then you allow it to go under a response and adapt, and then by the time it's fresh again, so basically like soreness is dissipated, if it got sore, fatigue's dissipated, it's now ready to be hit again.
Right.
Then you would train again. And most muscle groups, 2 to 4 times per week, depending on the person, the fiber type, the muscle size. That seems to be a frequency I found for most people seem to benefit more so from. It allows them to accumulate more volume, higher quality volume for hypertrophy.
Yep.
So for me, bro splits don't make sense for most people, but there are some people out there who have like quads the size of like just twice the size of my quads, and so they do an overloading session. It takes a week to recover.
Yeah.
So then they can only train it once a week.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think bro splits and where they came from were from the big, huge bodybuilders, and that's why, because they can damage their muscles to such an extent, they need a week to recover. But for like a newbie starting out in the gym, they probably recover like in a couple of days. They can go and hit their quads again and benefit from that.
No, exactly. So when you mentioned earlier about like smaller muscle groups, so would you say like, you know, calves, lateral delt, stuff like that, you can probably hit maybe 3 or 4 times per week if, you know, if that's something you want to work on?
Yeah, I mean, calves are one of those muscle groups that are special.
Do they grow?
Can
you answer the question of will the calves ever grow?
I have not, like, my last mesocycle, I experimented training my calves every day and just kept trickling up volume if they were recovering. Yeah. And they just seemed to be endless. It just seemed like they could just keep going.
It's brutal.
Other people I know who have, like, good quality calf development, they do, like, 3 sets and they can already feel like their calves are cramping and they take, like, a couple of days to recover. For me, I can get a pump in my calves, but they just don't really seem to respond.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Calves are especially annoying. So I'm hoping they're going to benefit and grow eventually. But yeah, for the delts, I mean, the size of your delt it's actually a really small muscle group.
Yeah.
And they can actually recover very quickly. So I've been training my delts for the last year 4 times a week.
Oh, wow.
They just can recover super fast.
So how do you split that up? Do you do like you have 2 days that are like a push-pull or push-pull and you hit them both on every day, or?
So yeah, my split has been legs, push-pull, legs, push-pull off. And on my all my upper body days, I end up doing delt work. So on my pushing days, I do side lateral raises. And then on my pulling days, I typically do upright rows and rear delts. So yeah, that's how I end up varying it. And then obviously different repetition ranges, slight undulations.
Yep. Right on. I like that. Quickly, another side note that they had there was for weak points. If someone has a weak point, which I think people jump to too quickly, I'd like to start off by saying that. I think, people get in the gym maybe 1 or 2 years, or they've stepped on stage once and then they just start ripping themselves apart. And it's like, whoa, you haven't had nearly enough time in the gym to look at your body and say, okay, that's a weak point. But say someone's been, in the gym consistently 8 to 10 years, maybe they're a competitor, they've been competing for many years, and there is an area that they look at and they're like, it's not up to snuff. What would you suggest? Just spread the volume out a bit more and hit it a little more often, or what would you tackle with that?
Cool. So yeah, assuming their technique is sound, that's often a place where, for me, like my back was quite often a weak point, and it took me a while to actually make sure I was working my back, or calves, for example. I wish my calf technique was awful, because then that would just give me an opening to be like, Steve, you can just improve your calf technique. Yeah. You'll be all right.
Sure.
So assuming that like technique's great, they've got like mind muscle connection with the movements they're doing, they're picking good movements for their body, they've got all the basic things like in check. I think there is definitely a case for putting some muscle groups on the back burner, maybe some of their strong points, taking them to an amount of volume that sustains their muscle mass, which can be quite low. So maybe a 40% reduction on their usual volume, easily get away with 40, 50% less, and just holding that. And then prioritize and blast their weak points, which again, it might be a case that your weak points can't even take that much volume. So you might find that you can't keep pushing it, but that will at least give you an opportunity to be as fresh as possible and give them their kind of due diligence. So that's probably what I'd suggest. Put some muscle groups on the back burner, and then prioritize those ones. And even to the point of which, before you even maybe do that, it's a case of people might say their side delts are lacking. It's like, well, where are they within your program? At the end of the session, well, try just putting them at the start of the session. Prioritize it that way. So there are small things that you can do before you start having to go to like leaving things on maintenance, putting things on the front burner.
Yeah, even like for me personally, I wanted to bring my shoulders up a little bit. This is I think we're the 7th show now since 2015. So I've been competing pretty actively for the last few years, and looking objectively at myself, I was like, okay, like side delts was an area that I could work on, and then I was that guy, like you just said, the end of the workout, couple sets of lateral raises, call it a day, right? I just didn't put the effort in. But now I've been doing like 2 kind of shoulder movements on a chest on a push day, right? So I'll do like a dumbbell lateral and like an upright row, and then I'll do like a separate like a shoulders and arms session where I'll hit like a larger press at the beginning when I'm fresh, and then maybe like a cable lateral as well. Not a crazy amount of volume, right? Like it's only like 3 sets of each, but it was, total wise through the week, the 3 shitty sets that I did at the end of the workout before versus the now, 10 to 12 that I'm doing that are quality, my shoulders have improved, right? Like I can feel it. I can see it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely how you tackle it for sure too.
Yeah, I think that's a quick solution for a lot of people is just, I don't know, they do an upper body workout and they always do chest first with their back slacking. Just why can't you do a barbell row before you do a bench press? It's an easy solution. Yeah,
everybody overthinks it, right? Like it's interesting how I don't know, everybody's looking for the quick fix, but like the quick fix sometimes is the answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just said, well, why don't you just start with back? It's genius. You're like, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next one I had asked was cardio timing during prep, and then they had in brackets, fasted in the morning, post workout, evening. Does it matter? Basically, that's the question, right? Does it matter, or just if you have X amount of cardio you need to do, just get it in?
So for me, I think your final point there is the crux of it, really. For most people, it truly isn't like a big deal. If it's someone who they have control over their day and they can actually, without being stressed, they don't need to like sacrifice sleep. They don't have to move work around, or they don't have to kind of get out of other social obligations, and they can actually pick when they do their cardio. I think it's probably good to space it away from your workouts generally is a good idea. So you've given the total everything to the workout, you've given your kind of full recovery and full energy levels to the workout, and then doing your cardio further away from it. For lifts, if it's like lower intensity steady state, if it's HIIT, if people are doing that, I generally like to think about where is that in relation to your leg training.
Sure.
Because you want to have the biggest amount. Because it's similar to weights in that it will use the same sort of like muscle fibers. It will kind of cause a big recovery debt similar to like training your legs. So I tend to say if you're going to do HIIT, then I would do that after your leg training. Like on that day.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I have one session right now that I do HIIT. It's a couple of intervals on the bike, and exactly what you just said. After a leg session, hop on the bike, get it done.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But
I'd rather get it done. Yeah, I'd rather get it done.
Worse than like if you had, I don't know, you did legs on Monday and then you had another leg session on Thursday and you ended up doing HIIT on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Your legs have just recovered for Wednesday. You smashed them by HIIT, and then your leg session on Thursday is like just a pile of rubbish. So
yeah, and then you're not progressing, and then it's a mess. Totally. Now, go ahead. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so yeah, generally get it in. That's the most important thing. But if you can prioritize it, I would say just further away from training tends to be a better solution.
Now, is there any merit to the old idea of fasted is better? Fasted is better for fat burning and all this stuff, and having that separate session, which is kind of like what you talked about earlier, having it separate from your workout, which would in theory mean it's a new opportunity for your body to burn a little bit more? Like, is there any merit to that stuff anymore, or has that been all debunked?
So I think Brad Schoenfeld did a great job at kind of debunking the theory that obviously you haven't consumed anything, so you're going to have to burn through like stored adipose tissue potentially. And he debunked that well by just getting people to stop looking at the trees and focus on the whole forest. So looking at the bigger picture essentially. So by the end of the day, are you in a calorie deficit? If you did fasted cardio and you're not in a calorie deficit, sorry, there's not fat loss going on. Whereas if you are, then there is. The thing I see for the benefit of fasted cardio is just the fact that it's time not eating. So if you can kind of not have to eat before you do your cardio in the morning, you've given yourself like another hour where you're not eating. So that's the main benefit for me that I see. I don't see any inherent benefit to fasted cardio.
Okay, interesting. Next one on the tail of cardio is cardio in the off season. Is there a place for it, that looking at an off season as a time that you want to build and all your efforts are into building, making progress in the gym, calories are high, workouts are good. Is there really any place for cardio? And if there is, why?
Cool. So I think in terms of HIIT, like we described before, in an off season, it probably doesn't make sense because it's very similar to your weight training. And if you've got energy to go and do HIIT, it's kind of like, why didn't you go and do another leg session?
Go do more legs.
Or do more volume within your leg workouts. It kind of seems a bit counterproductive to the goal of hypertrophy. In terms of just like lower intensities and maintaining good cardiovascular fitness, I think maintaining good cardiovascular fitness is important. You have a lot of that through maintaining good levels of body fat, not letting those get too out of control. Via high volume training, full stop, hypertrophy training, you're going to get, people think of cardio as just like being on the treadmill or doing something like that, but cardio is just your heart muscle working. If you're doing high volume leg training, high volume anything, like your heart's going to be working. And so to maintain a baseline fitness, you don't need to do very much. So if you're finding that your recovery is good, you're not being limited by your work capacity within sessions, and you otherwise are pretty active, you're training 4-6 times a week, you probably don't need to worry yourself, or even potentially wouldn't even find any benefit from doing additional cardio. If you're finding you're being limited by your cardiovascular kind of abilities, if your work capacity is a bit low, then potentially incorporating some might help. Again, if you're finding your body fat's getting out of control because potentially you're eating a little bit more than you should, it might help just keep body fat levels down, just because it's keeping your energy balance in a better place. But I don't think, apart from just, if you're getting a decent number of steps in and you're training hard and training consistently, you're a good level of body fat and you feel like things are progressing really well, I don't think there's going to be any inherent advantage to doing extra cardio on top of that personally.
Sure. One that kind of just popped into my head, I saw someone post about they were doing cardio. So say they were doing a session burning 300 calories, so they could then consume 300 extra calories. Like, is that silly? Let's be honest. Is that kind of a dumb thing to do? Like, if you are trying to, you're in a surplus at 3,500 calories, everything's going good, you're like not full, you could eat more, maybe you want to eat more, you're like, okay, I'll go do a cardio session, a little bit of lifts, I'll burn 300, that way I can have 300 more later. Is that dumb?
So I think there's a few problems with that. It's quite a complex thing, actually, if I really try and think it through.
I had to read it over a few times to make sure I understood what the individual was saying, and it was exactly that. They wanted more food without going over. So say they're 3,500, they wanted 300 more, brings them to 38. That probably would then bring their body fat up over time higher than they want, so they're going to do cardio to compensate, but they want to eat more. It just seemed very, very complicated for what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a psychological issue slightly, where the person may not be fully free of like diet fatigue, basically, where they're using their, and I always hate to see it, where people use their off seasons, their improvement seasons, to focus on eating as much as possible versus gaining as much muscle as possible. Like, that should be the focus for me. So when people are doing this, it's almost like binging and purging in a way, or bulimia, where they're kind of eating something and then being sick, because and it's similar, like they're eating something and then doing guilt cardio or cardio to burn it off. And I think that can get out of control. And like we've said, it could take away from potential kind of recovery capacities to their training.
Yep.
It's also a stressor just in itself to like have to think through that.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, like it to me is a sign of someone who isn't fully recovered from the dieting that they've done previously.
Right.
If they're in a surplus, their hunger should be under control. They shouldn't need to have to push that far. And if they're in a position where the hunger isn't under control, I don't think that cardio solution is going to be a solution. I think they're still just going to be as hungry, and it's going to take time. And then the only other issue I have with it is that if you don't net 300 calories by doing that, unfortunately, because in that time, maybe it took them 30 minutes. If they're just sitting on their ass for 30 minutes, they're going to burn maybe 100 calories. So maybe they'd net 200.
Yeah.
So in fact, they can't even equate it.
It's hard to quantify that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, fair enough. So basically summed up, that plan is dumb. All right. Next one, a question about direct ab work. Is it necessary for someone to do direct work to build their abs and get that nice, strong, blocky look that we're looking for on the bodybuilding stage? Because just like any other muscle group, you want them developed. Do you think there's room for it, or do they get enough work doing other things like everybody says, stabilizing during squats and deadlifts? You've seen those articles like, you don't need to train your abs, just deadlift. Like, tell me your opinion on that.
So I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
I think there are people who could get away with not ever training their calves because they have great calf genetics.
Right.
And they'll just get enough from like their squatting, their leg pressing, where they get that tiny bit of stimulus and they're fine. They don't need to worry. They've got a low insertion on their calf, and the prioritization of them isn't worth their time.
Yeah.
Similarly to abdominals, I think there's a big amount of genetics involved there in terms of where they insert their thickness. So for that person, they probably get enough stimulus from bracing during a squat, during a deadlift, during like bent over rows and everything, where they don't need to spend very much time isolating that muscle group. But for people who, unfortunately, for me, for example, like I do not have thick abdominals,
right.
I need to treat it like any other muscle group. It's similar to like saying, oh, your biceps will just grow from rowing and pulling, and you don't need to worry about isolating them. But if you don't have good bicep development, you're never going to maximize the muscle group growth of that bicep by not isolating it. So the same goes for your abs. Just unfortunately, they're similar to calves, and then one of those groups that just they don't have predictable and like realistic growth. You just can't necessarily see it like you would with any other muscle group.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating, but I think utilizing ab flexion, doing kind of cable crunches, machine crunches, and focusing on like you would with any other muscle group, that they should get thicker if that's something you want. Yeah,
I like when I first started training, I was that kid that always did chest, biceps, abs, right? That was my thing, right? When I was younger, and I visually had like very blocky, thick, developed abdominals. And then once I got more into lifting and I cared about my body as a whole versus just the quote unquote beach muscles, my abs faded. They really did. Like they weren't as developed and stuff. And like, visually you could still see them, but from a development standpoint, there was definitely noticeable reduction in size and stuff. And then over the times competing, when it's time to bring them out a bit more, say for the show, I definitely noticed direct ab work. Like you said, I'm a big fan of the cable crunches. I love the ab wheel, honestly. The ab wheel from my knees.
They destroy you.
Yeah, I get a huge, good contraction when I pull it in and stuff like that. I would agree with you. Like I think it's person dependent, right? Just like a lot of this stuff is. And if you want to bring them out more, then yeah, you probably do have to give them some direct attention.
I think it's hard as well because you gain body fat there. So during your phase, you're trying to grow them, you definitely can't see them that well.
So you don't even know.
Kind of like, I'm doing this, but next time I diet, surely they'll
be there. Yeah, for sure. Right on. All right, man. Next one I had for you from a question asker was post-show weight gain. How much? Again, these are kind of vague, but we'll get into it a little bit deeper. How much? What's kind of like a timeline when you'd like someone to, gain the weight back and recover from it, and any health implications with someone maybe trying to go too hard and get back to their normal weight quickly, or someone who's trying to take it shorter and really wants to just really hang on to being shredded for as long as they can. Any health implications to those things? So dive into that, man.
Cool. So yeah, the post-show period, it's gone through a bit of like in the recent years, actually, it's gone from like reverse dieting to then recovery diet.
Yeah.
And so obviously the traditional reverse diet was like you stay in a deficit and you just trickle up
very
small amounts, carbs and fats. And there are obvious health implications with that because you're prolonging a deficit, which you're in an unhealthy body fat percentage anyway. And that can lead to psychological issues and physiological ones where you're prolonging an extreme state where the body's not in a good place. And for females, that's really bad.
Yeah.
Or it can be because they can be without their period and you're extending that time. And a healthy sign for a female is having their period.
Yeah.
Similarly for males, like we have no libido for that time. So it's just, we're not in an optimal state by any means. So I think the kind of new approach of the recovery diet is much more healthy. It's focusing on that recovery period because you are in an extreme state.
Sure.
And I think the basic kind of idea behind that is within I think it's about 10 weeks, you want to be close to 10% above your stage weight. Now, I think that isn't as a rule of thumb, that's fine. I don't think everyone needs to get there.
Yeah.
The way I tend to approach it is kind of after about 6 weeks or so, 4 to 8 weeks, roughly in that range, I want you at your lower end settling point.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about body fat set points, where do we feel good, productive, healthy? For some people, they need to get quite above, which might be 10% above their stage weight. Other people might be just 5% above.
Yeah.
I can feel pretty good, 5% above my stage weight.
Right.
And I'm in a good position and I can slow down the rate of gain.
Right.
So I'm kind of looking at a percentage of increase of weight gain every week in the first kind of 8 weeks after the show, potentially around that.
Gotcha.
I think that's a fine approach for people who want to get back to improving. That's the most important thing is health, feeling good, all those things. You can't be in the gym and train your hardest if your testosterone's plummeted, your cortisol's still really high, and your body fat's not in a position where you can recover that well. So I think focusing on all those things is really important. So that's tends to be my approach, is focusing on recovery, focusing on improving, taking the vision away from the scale, taking the vision away from kind of the physique, focus on performance, and getting into a position where you can improve as soon as possible. Because, a lot of people can get, like I said, into a physiological but also psychological torment during that phase, and it can really, really harm them.
Yeah,
I think the key thing is...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the key thing behind it is having a plan, so knowing you're going to do it and have a think about it beforehand, because people end up having post-show and being like, oh, what do I do here? And they either binge or restrict massively. It's just have a plan and you'll be in a much better position.
Yeah, I was explaining to you, I have a few people doing the same show that I'm doing, my girlfriend as well. So I've been trying to, as they get closer and closer and they're feeling the cravings and stuff like that, and they're talking about all these things they want to have after, I'm like, okay, slow down a little bit. You got to understand what can happen. I've been that person that really binged post-show and my weight shot up really quickly, really fast. And the one thing that I go back and forth on with them is saying okay, you can accept that you're going to gain fat very, very quickly, but you'll probably feel better quicker. Or you take your time with it, you slowly come out of it, which, could take, another 6 to 8 weeks, but you'll maintain your physique a little bit longer. So it's that fine line of where you want to fall. I've always been one, after the show, I want to get back to normal quickly because I love to train hard. I do love, the higher intake in calories. So for me to get back up to, around showtime, I expect to be in the low 150s. For me to get back up to 165, 170, 175 very quickly, I'm okay with, because I feel much better when I'm there. And then, talk about the body fat setting points and stuff. My body really climatizes to what it's used to very quickly. And I think it's just from I'm used to it so much from competing the last few times. But, my girlfriend, I'm going to use her as an example. She's very food focused right now. So we have very, very regular conversations about what to expect after the show and what she wants, because she's lost a lot of weight for this. And for her, she doesn't want to go back up to where she started, right? I think she started around late 160s and is getting down to close to 140, right? And she's looking great, feeling good about her body, but feeling the effects of prep. That's unavoidable. But for her, she only wants to get up maybe to 155 because she doesn't need to get all that fat back, right? I will get back to a normal state at 175 where she can hang probably 150, maintain a good healthy physique, still perform good in the gym. But I know that her mentality with what she is hoping to do post-show shoots her way past 150. So it's a it's a tightrope to walk.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point actually there in that, like, a lot of people look at this period of time and they focus on, and they apply things that are applied to bodybuilders to every other physique competitor, but bodybuilders are the extreme of the extreme. Yeah. We are in very unhealthy position, whereas for like a bikini competitor, which I don't know what class your girlfriend's doing, but potentially figure. So, well, she's probably getting pretty damn lean, but still it's not quite as extreme potentially as what like men's bodybuilding is. They don't need to quite shoot as high and be as assertive out.
Yeah, it's interesting, that's for sure, because you know, I know my results of what happens after the show, and I know what to expect out of myself and what I can quote unquote get away with. So it's interesting going through this with her and seeing how she's handling it and doing my best to help her come out of it intelligently.
I respect you both for doing it at the same time, because that can't be easy.
Man,
both hungry, like.
Yeah, we're very good at knowing when to leave each other alone. That's one thing I commend us both for. Some nights we'll come home from work, we won't say a word for an hour or so, and then when we go to bed, it's like, "How was your day, sweetheart?" Hungry. How was yours?
Yeah.
All right, man. Last one I got for you for this one is peaking for a show. There's a lot of things out there about peaking that, you know, get thrown around with water and potassium and sodium and training and like all these things. Kind of outline your 3 or 4 main points for somebody. And then what I wanted to know personally is that I will get in the lightweight class, but it always takes me being very, very careful the Friday before weigh-ins, Friday night. I would just like your feedback on that, you know, how you may tackle something like that. I'll give you a little bit more information as we go if you need it. But anyways, get into the peaking, man. Just kind of general practices you would suggest for somebody, and we'll go from there.
So yeah, peaking is it's really interesting because I'm doing a course presentation for JPS over in Australia, and actually we're doing a seminar. At some point it will be released. They're coming over to the UK and we're doing a seminar, and I'm doing a presentation on peaking. So I've been doing a lot of research into it, along with obviously I peaked myself, and I've had consultations with experts about kind of peaking. I trialed some really interesting peaking methods last season that I competed, and some of them I will never repeat and I will not give to any clients, because you can really screw some things up. And the first thing I always like to do when I talk about peaking is put it in its place. So when I think about priorities for like how good are you going to come on a bodybuilding stage, in terms of pyramid, I'm always like, bottom of the pyramid is your off season. If you've set yourself up well, you've had a good off season, then you're going to provide that's the biggest thing that's going to mean the most for you. How much muscle have you built?
Right.
Are your calories in a good place? Are you in a good lean position? You're not too overweight before starting prep.
Yep.
Then it's all the week leading into your show. Are you consistent with your weight training? Are you consistent with your nutrition? Have you had some kind of intermittent breaks probably from your dieting phases?
Yep.
And then at the top of the pyramid is peaking. That 1 week, which in reality is not going to make that much difference.
People put too much stock in it.
Yeah, absolutely. The most important thing for peak week is being ready. So a lot of people come into that peak week hoping it's what's going to make them ready. And a peak week will never make you ready. It can never kind of put a band. It's never going to kind of, if something's completely screwed up, it's never going to make it better. It's never going to make it right. It can make kind of an already well-made cake, already well-iced cake, kind of can put the sprinkles on that and make it look fantastic, but it's never going to solve a terrible sponge, for example. So my general practices, without going into all of them, is obviously there's loads of different ways to peak. Like I call it like the bodybuilding taper, where you're slowly incrementally putting up carbohydrates over weeks and weeks and weeks, which is always a nice preferred method. But Lots of people don't get in shape ready in time for that one, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
There's front loading, back loading, mid loading, rapid back loading. So the way I tend to do it depends on the client. So I really just view it as like filling the bucket.
Yep.
View your physique as like a bucket full of, well, we could say carbohydrates and water. And essentially you're depleting it through dieting. You're also depleting fat stores. And so then we just want to make sure we're getting to a point during that peak week where we can fill the bucket so that we're nice, full, hard, crisp without being spilled over.
Sure.
And so it depends. If someone's kind of got the luxury of being kind of ready in good time, can do a front load, kind of look to fill the bucket, potentially slightly spill it over, and then just kind of deplete a little bit during the week and potentially top up at the end.
Yep.
Or if someone's kind of, they're maybe a little bit behind, or they could do with a little bit more fat loss, deplete through that week. Towards the end of the week, do a slight rise in in carbohydrates, and then look to fill them up there. I tend not to go too much with the rapid backload because I find that's the most extreme, the most stressful. I think stress plays a massive part in peak week that people underestimate.
Yeah, especially first-time competitors. Like I mean, I wouldn't say I don't get nervous. Like, it's more excitement now, but I know what to expect, right? But I got like 4 people doing this show, and you know, thankfully it's local, so we don't have the big travel. We're all in the same hotel, so we can link up. But you know, I'm fully prepared to give the motivational speech Friday night and be like, look, you've done the work, just go have fun now, guys. You know what I mean? I totally agree with you.
It.
Nerves is huge.
And yeah, I mean, especially for first time competitors, maybe their coach hasn't taught to them a lot, or they don't have a coach, and they're really not sure what to do about peak week. And just having someone there telling you it's not like the be all and end all. Look at you right now; you look great today. Like, peak week is just about maintaining that and making sure you kind of look potentially a little bit better. Yeah. So I tend to have a very conservative approach in terms of water, sodium. I have them keeping those very much level through weeks leading into prep. I do track them within like the last month, and then just say kind of keep those steady, keep drinking to thirst. You're going to get a little bit more sodium through having additional carbohydrates when we do carb load you anyway. And then when I go into show day, it's very much, we've already loaded you. You're going to hold that carbohydrate load. We shouldn't need to make any major modifications. Go and do your kind of pump up, have acutely some sodium before you go on stage.
So you just
you're going to look fantastic.
Table salt, just take like a tablespoon of it. Boom.
Yeah, basically have a shot of a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of table salt, depending
that's during
on
the pump up?
how big you are. So yeah, acutely sodium can do that. Like everyone probably notices it when they have like a really salty meal, even. Just like, oh, why have my veins started to come out? Especially when you're lean, you notice this immediately. So I don't have any kind of extreme approaches. I understand the variables, what we can do. And when you do try and manipulate, and I have personally done water loading, salt loading for a week, big depletion for a week, and then tapering off water, keeping sodium high to try and play with the kind of osmosis and where you're putting solutes and trying to reduce kind of any fluid that could be held outside of the muscles. And it's a lot of stress and hassle for not a lot of reward.
Fair enough.
I couldn't have done it if I didn't work from home. I'll just say that. Like, I couldn't have done it if I worked in an office. I'd just be dead. So I think, too many people place too much emphasis on it. And I think have an approach, have a plan, practice it ahead of time. Don't do anything extreme. Don't do anything you haven't done before. And just look to fill the bucket and get ready in time.
Awesome. And just the last one there about someone maybe trying to make a weight class to be more competitive. For myself, as I said, this will probably be my last season, ideally, where I dip into the lightweights, just, looking ahead at the next few years of off season. So my cutoff is 154. Usually it's 152 to 153 in the morning, right? So should I eat anything on the Friday, I'm over weigh-ins, right? So we're always very careful with my intake. Usually it's minimal intake during the day on the Friday, and then trying to aggressively carb up the Friday night. Any suggestions with that, in a situation like mine?
So you can do a lot keeping weight down via like the food selection that you have. So obviously, I assume you're going for like low fiber products.
Yeah, like for example,
kind of sit in the gut.
Yeah, like my last show, it was basically like have some chicken to to not feel like I'm starving during the day, 2 ounces every few hours just to get a little bit of protein in. Water was minimal. And then, just trying to keep stress down and just relax, and monitoring weight throughout the day. That was kind of the protocol that I ran last time. And it was like 153.4 or something like that. Right. But then when I filled up, like I was on stage, I think almost 160. Right. So like I was in the lightweights and I was like the big dude, right. Which is what we try to do. And I expect that to happen again this time. So I was just wondering if there was any suggestions you had or anything to do the Friday night to, maybe make up for lost time. Like ideally, building carbs up slowly. I don't have that luxury. I've kind of got to pack it in after 6 p.m. Friday night. So anything you got?
Yeah, so I would just focus on easy to digest ones. So if you're not consuming like, I don't know, it might be a Lucozade or a Gatorade or something, you can get in a ton of carbohydrates via that sort of thing, and they kind of assimilate and digest really quickly. Those are the things I'd be focusing on initially, and obviously they have electrolytes and sodium in them as well, so that's going to help with uptake as well. So those are the things I'd focus on, and just anything, you just want to avoid any gastric distress basically, because you're trying to eat so many carbohydrates in such a small period of time. So I just focus on things that really sit on your gut well, kind of pass through easily. Probably rice products, really easy.
Yeah, like rice cakes and jam is a go-to.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more than just what you're already saying. And then, just focusing on initially getting in via the kind of Gatorade or like dextrose, highly branched cyclic dextrin, that sort of route. So that will help initially.
All right. Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, man. Well, that was the last one I had for you today. I really appreciate you coming on and giving your insights to all that stuff. There was a lot of value in this podcast. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. So thanks for coming on.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and good luck with all your shows.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the support. We're 4 weeks, so we're right there. Can see the finish line.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day. All this man's stuff will be linked down below, his Instagram and everything, so go give him a follow. As you can tell from the podcast, very smart guy, lots of information to share. So give him a follow, and I promise you guys will learn some stuff. So thanks again for coming on, man, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, man, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
Talk to you soon.